Ever since I was a teenager growing up in Denver, Colorado, I dreamed about having my own home. Not just a place to sleep, not some cramped apartment with paper-thin walls and a landlord who ignored every maintenance request. I mean a real house, white siding, wide front porch, maybe a garden full of hydrangeas and lavender. I used to sketch it in my notebook in high school when I was supposed to be taking notes in chemistry class. Even then, I could see it clearly, the kind of house where I could make my own rules, decorate the way I wanted, and never have to answer to anyone. Maybe it started because my childhood didn't exactly scream stable. My parents weren't rich, but they tried. Dad was a truck mechanic. Mom worked at a bookstore until it closed down. We moved a lot. Rental after rental. Some places were fine. Others had cockroaches and carpet that crunched when you walked on it. I swore I'd never live like that again. I swore I'd build something of my own. So I worked hard. I got my first job at 16, scooping ice cream after school for $9 an hour. Every dollar I didn't spend went into savings. I applied for scholarships, studied until midnight, and graduated college with a business degree and no debt, thanks to a few grants and a part-time job at a local coffee shop. By the time I turned 28, I was working in marketing for a tech firm in Seattle, pulling in about $75,000 a year, and had managed to save just over $120,000. I didn't go out much. I didn't splurge on designer bags or fancy trips to Europe. All I wanted was that house. And I'd finally found it. A cozy, 3-bedroom cottage in Portland, Oregon. Light gray exterior with green shutters, a brick chimney, and a backyard just begging for a hammock and a grill. It was listed at $310,000, which was a stretch, but doable. I was planning to put down at least $40,000, then handle the rest through financing. I was excited. Nervous, sure, but more excited than I'd been in years. That was when Aunt Marilyn decided to step in. Marilyn is my father's older sister. She's the kind of woman who always smells like rose perfume, wears beige cashmere, and thinks she knows best about everything. After my parents died in a car crash when I was 22, she swooped in like she was the only adult left in the room. She organized the funeral, took over the estate paperwork, and became the executor of the tiny trust fund my parents had left behind. I was too deep in grief to ask questions, and honestly, I appreciated her help at the time. I was suddenly an orphan with a dozen papers to sign, and no clue what I was doing. But what I didn't realize back then was that Marilyn doesn't help without strings. Somewhere along the way, she convinced the bank to give her joint access to the trust account, claiming she was managing it for my own good. I wasn't suspicious. I didn't think she'd ever use it against me. I was wrong. When I told her I found the house, I was excited. I called her from the car after my second tour and gushed about the details, the kitchen island, the clawfoot tub in the upstairs bathroom, even the lemon tree in the backyard. There was a pause on the other end of the phone. Then her voice went quiet, measured. "Patricia," she said, "you're not ready for that kind of commitment. A house is a burden, not a dream." I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. "You're not thinking clearly," she added, her tone sharp and condescending. "And I won't let you waste your parents' money on something impulsive." I felt the shift instantly. It wasn't concern. It was control. The next morning, I logged into my bank account to start the transfer for the deposit. Declined. I tried again. Declined. A red banner appeared. Account access restricted. Funds frozen. I stared at the screen, blinking, thinking it must have been some mistake. I called the bank. After 40 minutes on hold, they confirmed it. Marilyn had activated a trustee restriction clause that allowed her to temporarily freeze movement of funds in the event of perceived financial irresponsibility. I couldn't believe it. I was 28. I paid my taxes. I had no debt. I was about to make the biggest and most responsible purchase of my life, and she locked me out like I was a child trying to blow my inheritance on a sports car. I sat at my kitchen table that night, the glow from my laptop the only light in the room, feeling stunned. I'd worked so hard. Scrimped, saved, said no to every tempting detour. All for this goal. And now it was out of reach because someone else didn't approve? I wasn't just angry. I was humiliated. Marilyn had frozen the account without even talking to me first. No warning. No discussion. Just a quick signature, and she'd boxed me out of my own future. I thought about calling her and demanding she release the funds. I even drafted a text, but something in me stopped. This wasn't just a temporary disagreement. This was a warning sign. A line in the sand. If I wanted to own a home, I'd have to find another way. And if Marilyn thought she could control me forever just because of a piece of paper and a dead relative's bank account, then she didn't know me at all. Not anymore. I sat in a corner booth at Pete's Coffee near Pioneer Square, my phone in one hand and my fourth espresso in the other. The little screen glared back at me, still showing the same maddening red notification. Account frozen. Trustee access active. My name was on the account. My social security number. My deposits. But my money wasn't mine anymore, not really. The chill of that realization hit harder than the iced drink sweating on the table in front of me. I wanted to scream or throw my phone or call Marilyn and curse her out. Instead, I just sat there in that overly air-conditioned cafe, staring like a zombie at the banking app that betrayed me. I could feel my heart thudding under my jacket, a tight ache of helplessness building in my throat. For the first few days, I told no one. Not even Lena, who had practically become family since our college days at the University of Oregon. She was living in Portland now, working as a real estate agent with a sharp wit and a better sense of direction than I'd ever have. She'd even helped me find the house. She would have been furious if she knew. I don't know what stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe shame. Maybe I just didn't want to say it out loud and make it real. But secrets don't stay buried for long, not when they weigh on you like this. On the third night, after a failed attempt to sleep, I called her. It was close to midnight. She answered on the second ring, voice groggy but warm. Em? What's wrong? I didn't even say hello. I just blurted it out. Marilyn froze my account. I can't access the money for the house. Silence. Then, like a light switching on, her grogginess vanished. She did what? I told her everything. How Marilyn had used her trustee powers to restrict access. How I had no warning, no say. How I felt like a damn guest in my own life. Lena didn't yell. She didn't lecture. But I could feel the anger radiating through the phone like a heat wave. Patricia, that's your money. That's financial abuse, plain and simple. The words hit me like a slap. Not because I disagreed, but because I hadn't dared think them myself. Hearing it from someone else made it impossible to ignore. I think I need a lawyer, I whispered. You think, she snapped. You needed one yesterday. The next day, Lena connected me with Benjamin Clark, a young attorney she knew through one of her clients. He worked out of Salem, about an hour south of Portland, and had a reputation for being fast, fierce, and unusually passionate about estate law, which, as it turns out, was exactly what I needed. I met him at his office on a drizzly Thursday morning. The place was a small, red brick building tucked between a bakery and a florist shop on a quiet side street. Ben looked barely older than me, with a trimmed beard, black-framed glasses, and a caffeine dependency that rivaled my own. I slid the folder across the desk. Everything I had, copies of the trust agreement, the bank correspondence, even the frozen account notice. He flipped through the pages silently, brow furrowed in thought. When he finally looked up, he nodded slowly. Okay, I see what happened here. This is old school. Probably drafted when you were still a minor. Right after my parents died, I said quietly. He tapped the trust agreement. Marilyn used a standard clause designed to prevent reckless withdrawals by underage beneficiaries. It gives her temporary authority to lock access if she deems a financial action irresponsible or harmful to the trust's integrity. I rolled my eyes. So, basically, she decided I'm a child again. Legally? For the purposes of this trust? Yes, he said bluntly. My stomach twisted. But, he continued, holding up a finger, here's what matters. Marilyn only has control over the funds that were originally part of the trust. Any new income, your paycheck, side gigs, bonuses, anything you've earned since the trust matured, that's yours. She has no legal claim over those funds, as long as they're not in a shared or a state-linked account. I stared at him. You mean I can use my own money, just not the money she's sitting on? Exactly, he said. She's betting you won't realize that. And just like that, something in me shifted. The fog started to clear. I didn't need to win against Marilyn. I needed to outmaneuver her. That night, I opened a brand new bank account, one with no connection to the estate or any joint signers. I transferred what I could, my emergency fund, my most recent paychecks, and a few freelance payments I'd tucked away over the years. It wasn't much compared to the trust, about $38,200, but it was a start. My money, no strings attached. I also contacted HR at my company and rerouted all future paychecks to the new account. Lena helped me go over my monthly expenses to slash everything unnecessary: streaming services, subscriptions, dinners out. I even returned a pair of boots I hadn't worn yet. Every dollar counted now. But even with all that, it still wouldn't be enough for the down payment I wanted. That's when the next, more painful decision hit me. I listed my car for sale. My 2019 Subaru Outback wasn't glamorous, but it was reliable. I loved that car. We'd driven all the way down to Big Sur in it one summer, just me and Lena, and a cooler full of iced coffee and trail mix. Selling it felt like slicing off a part of my freedom, but the market was hot, and I knew it was the right move. Within a week, I had a buyer who offered $15,000. I took it. I started biking to work, took the bus when it rained, walked more. It wasn't glamorous, but I was focused now. I had a new plan. Marilyn wanted to freeze me in place, but I wasn't going to wait around for her to thaw. I was going to move forward without her. Every day, I added another brick to my foundation, another deposit, another choice that brought me closer to independence. Marilyn might have locked one door, but I was already building another way in. The moment I walked out of Ben's office with a fresh folder of legal clarity under my arm and a spark of purpose in my chest, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't waste another second waiting on Aunt Marilyn to change her mind. That wasn't going to happen. She saw herself as the gatekeeper of my future, holding the keys to money my parents left for me, like it was a power she was entitled to. I was done asking for permission. That same day, I marched into Cascade Federal Credit Union, a place Marilyn had never touched, never sniffed around, and opened a brand new checking and savings account under my name only. No cosigner, no trustee, just me. I transferred over every dollar I had that wasn't tied up in the frozen trust. $38,200, give or take a few cents. It felt like taking off a pair of handcuffs I hadn't realized I'd been wearing. I rerouted all future paychecks, changed my online banking info, and even updated my PayPal and Venmo accounts. Anything that might lead back to her control, I cut off. I was building a financial wall, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. But the house I wanted was listed at $310,000, and I knew the seller was hoping for a fast, clean offer. I couldn't afford delays. My only option now was cash, and I wasn't there yet. Not even close. So, I did something that hurt more than I expected. I listed my 2019 Subaru Outback for sale. It was the first car I ever bought new, after years of clunkers and hand-me-down sedans. It had taken me across the West Coast, to job interviews and national parks and late-night drives when I needed to clear my head. But sentiment wasn't going to buy me a house. And in Portland, with solid public transit and everything I needed within biking distance, I could survive without it. I listed it on 2 platforms, and within a few days, I had a serious buyer, an ER nurse named Holly, who paid me $15,000 in full. We met at a DMV outpost on the east side of town, and I handed over the keys while trying not to tear up like I was giving away a pet. So, now I was biking everywhere: work, the store, meetups with Lena, and relying on Uber when I couldn't avoid it. At first, I hated it. I felt like I'd taken a step backward, like I was a teenager again trying to scrape by. But after a few weeks, I got used to it. There was something strangely freeing about traveling light. But even with the car money and the cash I had saved, I was still short. I needed another chunk to make my offer strong enough to catch the seller's attention. So, I hustled. I put my marketing background to use and launched a freelance copywriting side gig. I built a simple site, started cold emailing small businesses across the country, and listed my services on platforms that connected freelancers with startups. Blog posts, product descriptions, ad copy, you name it, I wrote it. It was exhausting. I worked late nights and weekends. I wrote at the kitchen table, in coffee shops, even in the back of a bus once when I was riding home late. But every invoice paid meant another piece of my future coming into focus. After 2 months, I scraped together another $9,000. That brought my total savings to $62,200. Not enough for the full purchase, but enough for a strong cash offer on a house that had been sitting on the market just a bit too long. Lena, always my ride or die, took another look at the listing and gave me a wink.
"Let's lowball it," she said.
I didn't think it would work, but we gave it a shot. The seller, an older man named Thomas who was retiring and moving to Vermont, was tired of waiting. He wanted to be rid of the property. It had great bones, but the paint was peeling, the kitchen cabinets needed replacing, and the upstairs bathroom had tile from the 1970s. I didn't care. I wasn't scared of some elbow grease. This was my shot. We offered $280,000, all cash, no contingencies. 3 days later, he accepted. I remember getting the call from Lena as I stood in line at a hardware store of all places, picking up a new lock for the temporary apartment I was staying in. My phone buzzed, and her voice came through, wild with excitement. He accepted it. "Patricia, you got the house." My knees almost buckled. I had to lean against a shelf stacked with doorknobs and deadbolts just to keep from sliding to the floor. Ben drew up the contracts, and everything moved fast after that. With no mortgage company involved and no financing delays, we closed in less than 2 weeks. On a rainy Wednesday morning, I signed the final documents in a quiet office on the east side of Portland. When they handed me the keys, my keys, I nearly cried. Not a single cent of it had come from Marilyn. She had no part in this. No say. No authority. Just like that, I had built something without her. The girl she thought she still controlled, the girl who needed her approval, her access, her money was gone.
And in her place was me.
Fully mine.
Free.
The house wasn't perfect. The plumbing needed work, the garden was overgrown, and the wallpaper in the guest bedroom was hideous. But every flaw felt beautiful to me. Because it was mine. Because I chose it. Because I fought for it. I had a plan. And for the first time in a long time, the plan worked. Marilyn found out the same way she finds out everything, too late, and with the assumption that she still had some kind of authority over my life. It happened about a week after I moved in. I was in the middle of stripping hideous pink wallpaper in the guest bedroom when my phone lit up with her name. I stared at it for a long second, watching it ring, heart thumping with something between dread and amusement. I didn't answer. She called again the next day. And the next. On the third try, I picked up, not because I owed her anything, but because I was ready. "Patricia," she said without a greeting, "what is this nonsense I'm hearing from Lena?" Of course, Lena had posted a photo of me on Instagram the day of closing, standing on my new porch, grinning like a lunatic in paint-splattered jeans, holding up a shiny set of keys. Marilyn must have seen it or heard about it from someone in her country club book club. I smiled into the phone, calm and deliberate. "You mean the house?" I said.
"Yeah."
"I bought it." "With what, exactly?" Her voice was clipped, every syllable sharp. "Your trust account is still frozen, in case you forgot." "I didn't forget," I said. "I didn't use the trust. I used my money. The money you don't have access to." Silence. A pause thick with disbelief and something like irritation. "You made a serious mistake," she said finally. "That house is a money pit. The seller was probably desperate. There's no way it passed inspection. You should have talked to me before." "No," I interrupted. "I didn't need to talk to you. You don't get a vote anymore." I could almost hear her jaw clench on the other end of the line. "This isn't how your parents wanted their money used, Patricia." I laughed, and it came out sharper than I expected. "Don't you dare invoke my parents. They wanted me to have a future, not to be babysat by their controlling sister for the rest of my adult life."
She didn't argue.
She just said, "You'll regret this," and hung up. That was 6 weeks ago. Since then, I've been too busy living my life to give her another thought. Well, that's not entirely true. I've thought about her, sure, but mostly with relief. Relief that her grip on my life is finally gone. Relief that I trusted myself. Relief that I got out from under her thumb without burning the whole family tree to the ground. The house still needs work. It's not some polished dream out of a magazine, but it's mine. And there's something sacred about that. Every morning I wake up to light pouring through the big front windows, catching dust motes in midair like confetti. The first project I tackled was the floors. They were scuffed and dull, but after 2 weekends of sanding and refinishing, the hardwood glows now, honey-colored and warm. I painted the living room walls a soft sage green. I fixed the broken front steps. Lena came over with pizza and helped me tear out the awful brass light fixture in the entryway. We celebrated with Prosecco and a housewarming plant, a wild spider plant that's now thriving in a terracotta pot near the kitchen sink. My neighbor, Mike, who's about 60 and has lived on this block for 2 decades, started mowing my lawn without even asking. I offered to pay him, and he just waved me off. First-time homeowner tax, he said with a grin. I never thought mowing my own lawn would mean so much to me. But it does. Every blade of grass feels earned. There's a lemon tree in the backyard, growing a little sideways but still full of fruit. I spend my Saturday mornings trimming the garden, listening to music, thinking about absolutely nothing urgent. Sometimes Lena comes over, and we sit on the back steps with coffee, talking about everything and nothing. At night, I light a candle and listen to the house breathe. It creaks a little when it settles. The pipes make noise. There's a stubborn draft near the back door. I love all of it. Last weekend, I invited Ben, the lawyer who helped me set everything up, over for coffee. He's become something of a friend now, and I think he was genuinely impressed by how far I'd come. He asked if I ever plan to try and reclaim access to the frozen trust funds. I just shrugged. Maybe. But I don't need it right now. And I sure as hell won't beg for it. He smiled and said, "That's exactly what Marilyn didn't want to hear."
Good.
Sometimes I still think about calling her. Not to fight. Just to tell her she lost. That she tried to cage me with paperwork and power plays, and it didn't work. But then I remember, people like her don't admit defeat. They just stew in silence and pretend they're still in control. Let her. Because I don't need her anymore. What I needed was faith in myself. A plan. A fresh start. And I built it with my own hands. This house may not be the biggest. It doesn't have granite countertops or a luxury tub or central air yet. But it has peace. It has ownership. It has me in every corner, every screw turned, every wall painted. And more than anything, it has freedom. Every time I unlock that front door, I remember something. When people try to control your future, sometimes the best revenge is building your own, one brick, $1, one decision at a time.